Hello and welcome back, Realty Pros. We are happy and excited that you joined us this evening for this evening's new agent training. And we have one of our own, um, our buyer agent guru, Mr. Curtis Price, who is joining us this evening, and he is going to share with us on the buyer's side for this evening's training. So you all be prepared, get your questions together. I'm sure he welcomes plenty of questions. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to turn it over to you, Curtis. Again, thank you for joining us. And you can go ahead and you can take it from here.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Anitha. And what's going on, my Porterhouse family? So I'm happy to be here tonight hosting a buyer training for all the new agents and any seasoned agent, whoever's here looking to get some information from the buying side of real estate. So what I'm going to really focus on this evening is going to be kind of a foundational pillar that we have here at Porterhouse International Realty Group, which is our buyer consultation. So if you're a new agent or a seasoned agent that is transferred over to Porterhouse, I know a lot of times, working with folks, they can think that they are, and I used to do this, HGTV and DIY network real estate experts. And, there's so many shows, there's so many channels and things going on out there now that, a lot of times people think that, it's really not that hard or that, I don't want to say big of a deal, but that it's not that difficult to buy a property, right? Because on TV, we don't see the ins and outs and the outs and ins. We just see the quick, 30-minute or the 45-minute edited down segment of the flipper or, the first time home buyer, what have you. So with that being said, one of the things that you really want to embrace is that you are the expert. You're a licensed realtor in the state of Maryland or whatever state you are licensed in, but you took your credit hours, you passed multiple exams, and you have your license hanging at one of the best brokerages in the DMV, if not the entire world, at Porterhouse. So you are a professional. You know what's going on in that home buying process and in the home selling process as well. So you want to really start to embrace that. With that being said, what the home buying consultation is going to do is it's going to reconfirm that foundation that you are the expert. That's the real power of the home buying seminar, the home buying one-on-one consultation, what have you. So at Porterhouse, that's kind of like this major pillar that we do. We want to get them pre-approved first and foremost. How else are you going to know how much home you can afford if you're not properly pre-approved? So, we can reach out to Michael Cooper, get them pre-approved, talk to the lender. If they're working with another lender, that's just, so be it. They're already in the mix. They've have a relationship with the lender, but we want them pre-approved. So we know exactly, and they know exactly how much home that they can afford. Once that pre-approval is done, we like to refer to that pre-approval paper, that was a lot, pre-approval paper, as their golden ticket. So literally like the Willy Wonka golden ticket, they've got their golden ticket. They're pre-approved for $10 million, $150,000, whatever the case may be. We know that there's a lender out there that is willing to fund them X amount of dollars for the purchase of their home. At that point, what we want to do is we want to sit them down in person. We have an amazing office that you can book an actual buyer consultation at. I've done buyer consultations at Panera. I've done buyer consultations with COVID on Zoom. I've done buyer consultations in a parking lot with 2 cars. And this was when COVID first hit. And we just pulled up like we were police officers, windows down, and I did a buyer consultation. So you can pretty much do them anywhere. Ideally, it would be nice to be face to face. There's more interaction, you get to actually meet the person, what have you. But you're going to set up the buyer consultation. So actually pulled mine out. So this is my actual first Porterhouse home buying consultation. It's changed a little bit. I have it loaded. We're going to kind of go through the online version. So if you are doing a presentation, you can pull it up, you can put it on the screen and go through your presentation. You can also email it to them. It's a certain file that they need to have access to, but essentially in this digital age, you can do some really cool things with the buyer consultation. I like to print mine out. I printed it out. This was a few years ago. We didn't have as much as the same kind of tech that we have today. I am a paper kind of person. So I have coffee stains on it, so I would literally just print this out and go through it. Not that I need to, or that you really need to memorize like verbatim the entire consultation packet. But what it's going to do is it's going to arm you also with just really good information that even if you're not doing a home buyer consultation, if you meet somebody at a restaurant, you meet them out at an event, what have you, you're going to start to arm yourself with more information, making you the expert realtor that you are. You're just going to become even more expert, I have mine printed out and I would just read through it. I'd make notes. So if I was sitting in on an actual home buyer consultation that say Shay, Mr. Porter was running, I would sit there with my home buyer consultation printed out and I would just take notes in it as if I was going, I'm sitting there with him. So even like now, if I knew that I was going to attend training on the home buyer consultation, I'd have it out just so you can jot notes as it goes along. So what you want to eventually have happen is that you can kind of go through the actual consultation and you start to personalize it. Everybody loves war stories, things that happened in your transaction that, you could share with a potential buyer, or things that you heard or have heard from other realtors at Porterhouse that you can borrow and, kind of use within that conversation to really, make it more personal, and also just make you, again, more of an expert, different situations, different scenarios. There's not one transaction that's probably going to be identical. So, kind of like Snowflake or Fingerprints, all of our buying and selling transactions, they're all going to be very unique, but we can kind of take snippets and cuts of information that are cool, fun, going to really stick in that buyer's mind. So as they start going through the actual home buying process, a lot of what you've told them starts popping up. The other thing that I really like about the home buying consultation is that it really sets the stage. In real estate, this is one thing that I'll let folks know during the consultation. You're about to write some of the biggest checks in your life. You're buying not a nice car, you're buying a place that you parked the car at. So you're buying property, preparing them for the checks that they're going to write. I think that's one of the big, what's going to happen, worries per se with a potential buyer, especially a first-time buyer. It's like people know they got to they got to spend money, but then you've heard so many, no money down and you can get this. And so it's always good to lay it all out there in the beginning before you've even shown one property. It's going to set the stage. It's going to manage expectations. They're going to know that they have to pay for their home inspection. They're going to know the EMD that is going to be potentially needed. You want to, the appraisal. You want them to know about all these things, not that they're under contract for a house and they have to pay for an appraisal. Like, well, what's the appraisal? I didn't know about an appraisal. That's more money I have to come out of my pocket. Where it's like, no, remember, I mentioned that to you in the home buyer consultation. These are the checks that you're going to have to write. And remember, this is why you have to have the appraisal done. Oh yeah, that's right. I remember it now. So the home buying consultation is an extremely powerful tool that we have, that we're all encouraged to follow through and do at Porterhouse. I personally think you should print a copy out, and just kind of familiarize yourself more and more with it. So with that being said, I'm going to share my screen, and I'm basically going to pull up the PDF or the slide version of the home buyer consultation. I'm going to kind of just go through it. This is also in your Brokerment library. So you have direct access to this same slide information that you're going to see. So you don't have to worry about, writing everything down verbatim, because literally you have access to it. If at any time something pops up or, strikes as a question, please feel free, jump out there, let me know, and, we'll address it. Some things I'm not going to, read over it verbatim, but just kind of give you somewhat bullet point of what is happening, or things that I've even picked up along the way of hearing other people do buyer consultations, or doing them myself, that I know had kind of an aha moment with that potential buyer. So kind of just point those things out. So going to go through the slide, and again, anytime, ask away with the questions. So let me get my screen shared. Okay. All right, guys. So it's loading up. Cool. All right. So as we kind of go through, the first few pages are pretty much kind of a background of the brokerage, just letting people know, where they're at, who they're going to be hiring as their realtor. So again, feel free, if you want, you can actually go through all of this on your own. But so when we get to this particular slide, the Maryland Real Estate Commission, MREC, basically mission is to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the public through its examination, licensing, and regulatory activities regarding real estate brokerage services. So at this point, I'll let the potential buyer know, I am a licensed realtor in the state of Maryland, whatever state you are licensed in. And, even kind of point out in red, you can go to www. and actually, pull me up and see that I am a real realtor. So why you need a realtor? So as we move through this presentation, we're setting the stage and letting them know that one, we are the guy or gal that is going to help them with their property, helping them buy their first home or second home. What this is nice bullets. You know, we can save you endless amounts of time, money, and frustration. We know the housing market inside and out and can help you avoid the wild goose chase. The wild goose chase one is really important because you don't want to just be driving around wasting your gas and money as well. Neither do you want them, your buyer, to just be out buying, wasting their time and gas also. Um, we can help you with any home, even if it is listed elsewhere or if it is being sold directly by the owner. We know the best lenders in the area and can help you understand the importance of being pre-approved for a mortgage. We can also discuss down payments, closing costs, and monthly payment options that will suit you. We are an excellent source for both general and specific information about the community, as well as tips on home inspections and pricing. We are experienced at presenting your offer to the homeowner and can help you through the process of negotiating the best. We bring objectivity to the buying transaction, and we can point out the advantages and the disadvantages of a particular property. One of the best things about Porterhouse International Realty Group as your realtors is that all this help normally will not cost you a cent in commission. Generally, the seller pays the commission to the realtor. Again, let me state that one again. This is a key point to let that buyer know. Generally, the seller pays the commission to the realtor. So that's, like I was saying kind of earlier, we're letting them know there's money involved. Checks are going to happen. That's also another big, my commission is 3% on the buying side, but the seller is going to pay for that commission. Sometimes the seller might only be offering 2.5%, and at that point, you would be responsible for the other 0.5%. But all I would be charged, all my brokerage is going to be charged is 0.5% versus the 2.5% or even the 3%. So you're already saving money by having me as your realtor. So what does having an agent mean for you? So this is our fiduciary duty, and you can see the code C, care, the O in obedience, the L in loyalty, the D in disclosure, the A in accounting, the confidentiality is C. Cold AC is the acronym that we kind of use. What this is doing is just like a licensed doctor or anybody that's performing a high level service. I have a fiduciary duty to you. You have my care. You have my obedience, my loyalty, my disclosure, accounting, and most importantly, my confidentiality. Again, making yourself, you are the expert. You are the realtor. So understanding agency, who works for whom? So this has always stuck out or stuck with me. Mr. Porter did this. I don't know if he's changed up how he has done this portion of the buyer consultation, but seller agency, agent will represent the best interests of the seller. Agent will owe the seller fiduciary duties. Agent must give the buyer all material facts so that the buyer can make an educated decision. So I like to think of this particular slide, or this, you see the buyer in the pyramid and the seller's at the bottom. So many moons ago, when there was no internet and we weren't as plugged in and dialed in as we are today, buyers used to just drive around neighborhoods and they would look for that yard sign with, the for sale sign, letting the buyer know, wow, the house is for sale. If the buyer went up and called the number on that sign, the selling agent would answer and would be more than happy to walk that buyer through the process and help him or her buy that home. What the buyer didn't realize is that they're at the top, all the money and interest of the deal, because the seller agent has a fiduciary duty to the seller. All the money, all the kind of ins and outs and the best way to get through the deal, all that slides down to the seller. So, the seller is being taken care of. The buyer is just kind of floating out there. Granted, they got the house, they got the keys, but nobody was looking out for their best interest. Buyer agency. Agent will represent the best interests of the buyer. Agent will owe the buyer fiduciary duties. Agent must give the seller all material facts so that the seller can make an educated decision. This will kind of be like a FSBO scenario. Someone's, selling their property on their own. And kind of, again, a lot of times FSBO folks, they think they know HGTV or DIY, or, they've YouTubed a few videos, or they think they can sell their own home. They don't have the forms. They don't really know what they're doing, but they're gonna sell it on their own. The seller comes, or the buyer rather, comes in with their agent. Agent is going to have that fiduciary duty to their buyer. And in this scenario, the ladder is kind of shifted. And now all the money, all the inner workings of really structuring the deal, it's all going to slide down to the buyer because the seller isn't represented. So with this particular imagery or this slide, that's kind of what I'll touch on is seller agency, all the money, resources, the best interest slid down to the seller. Buyer agency is just reversed. All the resources, the best interest, the money is going to slide down to benefit the buyer. Yeah, and actually, if you are viewing a property with an agent and have not signed a buyer brokerage agreement, that agent represents the seller. So transaction broker, dual agency. So we all know dual agency is, you're representing both sides of the deal. We can do that in DC, and we can't do that in Maryland. But just to go through this, agent represents both the buyer and the seller equally. Agent's objective is to get a mutually satisfactory agreement among all parties. Agent gives all options to the buyer and the seller. Depending on the local market, all parties may be present at contract presentation to negotiate on their own behalf. All parties have confidentiality. Agent may do nothing to the detriment of either the buyer or the seller. Both the buyer and the seller have a right to counsel. Before making any decisions, both parties have the right to seek family, religious, legal, or financial counsel. So with this particular slide, what I like to let the buyer know is essentially in today's market or today's world that we live in, that scale that was one side for buyer or one side for seller, it's even now. The buyer's going to have an agent, the seller's going to have an agent. If there is a property that happens to be represented on the selling side from a porterhouse agent, or that it was my listing, I can recommend another agent to kind of step in and assist on that side of the buying side. But looking at it for just a buying standpoint, if a home is listed by a porterhouse agent, we can definitely make this happen. There's no problem. We just need to disclose that the the home listed is a porterhouse agent's property, and then they're going to have their own representation. But I like to point this one out is that, you know what, today's world, everything's balanced out. It's not as one-sided as it used to be. So when we, at this point, it's kind of like, through the presentation, you've been talking, giving them great information. But here is when you really want to kind of get your notepad, or, you have whatever you're going to be taking, notes on. You want to get that ready, and you really want to now give the microphone or give the floor to the buyer. Why do you want to buy a home? And jot down information from that buyer, what their interests are, what's really piquing, why do they want to buy a home? So you kind of are getting some information from them. And as we go into the next few slides, these are some of the most powerful slides in the presentation, because it's going to they're going to really let that buyer know the benefits, of home buying. It's also, they're also going to really properly map out the actual entire home buying process like a blueprint. So the next few are just extremely powerful slides. So reasons to buy a home. We got improve your quality of life, the tax deductibility of mortgage interest, the tax deductibility of property taxes, appreciation potential of real estate, deferred gain and capital gain treatment. So you get 250,000 if you're single, or 500,000 if you're a couple. Once in a lifetime exclusion, the principal accumulation that you can gain from your home, the pride that you have in your home. There's no landlord. And leverage. Where else can you buy this size of an investment with 5 to 10% down? And then lastly, one of the best ones is the real cost of renting. So just as an example, at $700 per month, and then you can, joke with the buyer like, hey, what's your rent? Is your rent more than $700 a month? More than likely, yeah. With a 6% rental increase per year, you will pay $110,719 over a 10-year period. And that $110,719 just went right out the window. You weren't able to get any tax deductions. You had no principal accumulation that you were getting from the property. So this is a really good tool or page that it's spelling out and letting the buyers know that there's so much benefit in home ownership. One of the ones that I really like to point out is number 4, appreciation potential of real estate. And if you're from the area, I'm sure you're familiar with the National Harbor. And I'll kind of point out, I used to go there when it was really new. I think there was just like Rosa Mexicana and like maybe that 511 or something. That's still there. But like a couple restaurants, just that nucleus right there where the guy's hand and head's coming out of the stand right there. And then like a few properties. And I'd point out like, hey, there's properties here that back when it was first starting to be built, you could get for $400,000. That same property now is $900,000. That's the appreciation potential of real estate. And if you do know somebody that has bought when it was 400, please let them know that, hey, if they sell, they can get a deferred gain and capital gain treatment up to single $250,000. If it's a couple, That's $500,000 that they don't have to pay tax on. So, adding little things in that are going to personalize it, that you're going to be comfortable with, uh, is always awesome. But this particular slide is really powerful. And then it's going to we're going to roll right into the actual home buying process. So you figured out what they want, why they want to buy. You're going to kind of confirm that, hey, yes, you do need to buy because it's such a great thing to have to be a homeowner. Here are like 11 reasons why you need to buy a house. And now, look, this is the process. So what I'm about to take you through now is literally step by step how we're going to get the keys in your hand. The first thing you're going to need to do is find a realtor you can trust. Hopefully, that's me. You're going to obtain financial pre-qualification or pre-approval. We've already taken care of that. You've met with Michael Cooper. He's got you squared away. We know you can afford 2.5 million. So we're ready to rock and roll. We're going to analyze your needs in a buyer consultation. So we're in it. We're going to figure out exactly what you want and how we're going to get you those keys. So after the consultation today, I'm going to set up a property search for you based on the requirements that you have, but you might get a lot of them. So the way the searches are going to come, you're going to have to, there's going to be email from me. You have to open it up, click the link. That's going to turn on and activate the actual search. And then there could be 20 homes, there could be 50 homes, there could be 80 homes. Excuse me. There could be a series of homes. What I need you to do is to comb through those homes and pick out your top 10. If there's a couple involved, I need both of you to figure out your top 10. If it's a family affair, whoever's, going to be in on this buying process, you want to make it clear that you need everybody's input because, again, we don't want to waste our time, our gas, our energy where we're showing a home and then, the husband shows up or the mom shows up. And now it's like, well, I don't like this. We needed a bedroom in the basement. So you want everybody that's going to be, in on this process. Pick your 10. Then you guys fight it out over your top 3 properties. You're going to then send me the addresses, screenshot them, home snap, whatever it is. Send me the addresses. I'm going to check the properties out, make sure that they're still on the market. If there are any offers in, depending on how many days on the market the property's been out there. But make sure everything's good to go. I'm going to then set up 3 showings. We're going to pick out the day, boom, boom, boom. We'll go out. We're going to look at these 3 properties. After we look at the 3 properties, I want to know which property that we are going to write a winning offer on. What we want to do is they can't purchase a home without writing an offer. It just doesn't work. If for some reason it really just does, none of the 3 don't fit at all, well, then we'll recalibrate if we have to adjust the search, what have you. But you want to start to really get in, their mind that, hey, if we see it, I always tell folks, like, if your spidey senses start tingling, or you get the warm and fuzzies and it feels good, let's write an offer. Let's get that offer in and get you the keys to the property. At that point, now, so just kind of like a pause, what's going to happen is now we're going to start to really just kind of let them know the checks, the money, what's about to happen within the process. The next slide is just longer. So it's just cut off. And then you're going to see some dollar signs. But if I'm going to go home now or back to the office, what have you, to write the offer, I need earnest money deposit. So we call it our EMD. 1% of the purchase price is what we recommend strongly at Porterhouse. If you want to go more than 1%, great. What the earnest money deposit is a way of showing that seller that you're willing to put skin in the game. So if it's a $500,000 house, 1% of that is going to be 5%. 1% of that is 5%. 1% of that is $5,000. So I'm going to need a check, a picture of a check. So there's no money moving, nothing's moving yet, but I just need a picture of a check that's going to be made out to Porterhouse International Realty Group. In the subject line, you can put EMD for the $5,000. You're then going to take a picture of the check and then just email that to me. I'm going to add that into our offer, showing the buyer or the seller that you're serious. That's also going to go right underneath the pre-approval letter that we got from Michael Cooper or your lender. So it's showing that seller that you are serious. You have your pre-approval done. You have a picture of your earnest money deposit. You're ready to go. The only time that we will then need a real check, which would be a wire transfer, would be once our offer is actually accepted. So you'll see the rejection. If it's not accepted, we got to keep looking, or we can negotiate, we can counter. So the deal starts happening, but we have to write our strong winning offer and submit it for everything to keep moving forward. Once our offer is accepted, it is ratified. So the contract is officially a binding, ratified contract. At this point, it's extremely important that you start to let that buyer know time is of the essence. We can kind of, move around and, look at some houses and I'm not sure, or, you wrote an offer, wasn't accepted, wrote another one, wasn't accepted. Once that thing is accepted and it is a ratified contract, time is on, time is rolling. So we need to make sure that we have our home inspection within 48 hours so that we can then remove any contingencies within the contract to keep it moving along. So very important though, guys, like that you start to stress time. There's no delaying. Let them know to get a big red folder or a thumb drive, get something that you can put all your check stubs, your bank statements, everything that your lender was asking you for to get you pre-approved. Have a place that you can put all of that that'll be ready and accessible, because they're going to keep asking you for it. So don't be alarmed if Mike Cooper is like, hey, can you send over that pay stub again? Can you send over? It's just going to happen. What they're doing is they're looking at the file more and more as we get closer to closing and you getting the keys. They want to make sure there's no charges, nothing has hit out of nowhere. So just be prepared that they're going to continue to ask you for these documents. The more they ask, the closer we are to the finish line. So just a side note, I have had buyers that have literally come back to me and been like, I'm so glad that you just like gave me the heads up, because, oh my gosh, like they kept hounding me for the same documents. I was like, I just sent you, the documents like a day ago or 2 days ago. Like, why do you need them again? But I remembered at the home buying consultation that you prepped me for, like, this is going to happen. So again, who's the expert? I am. You are. You're the realtor. You know what you're doing, and that just shines through. I even have they're in it right now, a new build, and I kind of gave them too, like, hey, as you get closer to closing, they're going to be asking for the same stuff. And sure enough, we did a walkthrough. This was now a few weeks ago before they put drywall up and everything. And my guy was like, man, he's like, yeah, they keep asking me for it. But he was like, yeah, remember you mentioned like they were going to ask me for this stuff. So even a new home, new build, everyone's going to go through this. So it's really good to, let your buyers know. So once we're, I'll touch on the upfront monies, but really once we're ratified and we've gotten through the first contingency, or that contingency for the home inspection. So home inspection went through, needed no repairs. It might have needed a few things, might have flagged, went back and forth. Buyer's going to either credit seller's either going to credit the buyer possibly some money to help with the things that need to be repaired, or seller is going to fix, repair, replace whatever needed to be repaired, replaced. Everybody's happy, and now contingencies are gone, and now we're moving along. At this point, as the licensed realtor, your job is I don't want to say it's done, but you really take a step back. Up to this point, though, showing homes, you're going out, you're writing offers, submitting the offers, you're really working to get under contract. Now it's kind of passed really over to the lender and underwriting and all these things that are going to happen to make sure that the buyer can afford and gets clear to close and actually purchase the property. So what you kind of become at this point is more of the kind of like a guardian angel, and you're going through and you're making sure that, are you getting those documents to the lender like he or she is asking, or you're making sure that everything is moving along how it should be. Nice thing with Brokerman, guys, is that it has an actual, once you put in the ratified date, it generates a whole list of where you're at, what documents you should be collecting, things that should be happening throughout the deal to get to the settlement closing table. But you're kind of like, making sure. I always like to use the analogy of like hot potato. Something pops up, the hot potato's been thrown in your lap. Okay, let me make sure I got this document back to where it needs to go. Or buyer, did you get this document? Okay, you got it. Hot potato's out of my lap. So you're making sure that the deal and the transaction is moving right along how it needs to go. There will be hiccups. There will be certain things that are going to flag or that might happen. It's just natural. What we want to do in our home buyer consultation is we want to manage and alleviate as much stress and confusion as we can before we're even in the mix. And that's what we're doing right now. So I know I mentioned, to you, the buyer earlier about, writing big checks. These are really some of the big checks that you're going to be writing. So once we're under contract and we are ratified, we are then going to have that earnest money deposit wire in to the brokerage that we're going to hold in our escrow account for your safety. So if anything happens throughout the deal, the money is essentially in our brokerage escrow account. We charge a one-time admin fee, our brokerage fee of $7.95. So I'll need to have that once we're ratified and under contract for your new home as well. The home inspection, it's going to vary depending on the size of the property and location, but you can look at, I'll tell folks, 350 to 450, give or take, but we got a couple phenomenal inspectors that we can refer you to, but you're looking at about ballpark of that fee. The appraisal fee, 500, give or take. The appraisal, what the appraisal is, and then I kind of go into explaining to the buyer. It's something that the bank is going to order to make sure that the loan amount, or that the purchase price, what you're willing to buy, it actually meets that value. So there's kind of two things that can happen with the appraisal. Because you, the buyer, are paying for it, this is your personal private document. We don't have to share this, and we won't share this with the seller unless we need to. So just to keep, we have a $500,000 house. We're offering $500,000. The bank has somebody come out, and they're going to look at it and be like, hey, is this house really worth the 500 that we're about to give a loan for? When they send a person out, and the appraiser comes back, and the appraiser can say, hey, the house is worth 500,000. Nothing really changes. It's right at market. They're happy, the seller's happy, everyone's happy. 500, the deal moves right along. However, appraisal could come back and be like, hey, I think it's actually worth $510,000. At that point, that's $10,000 over what you offered. We're going to keep that. I'm going to keep that quiet and personal. That's your information, and we're going to let the seller know appraisal came in, everything was great. There's no contingencies, no issues, nothing. We're going to move on forward with that $500,000 purchase price. They're happy. You're happy. And now you walk into that house with $10,000 of equity already in the home. Phenomenal, right? Now, if it appraises for $490,000, just say appraisal came back, it's not worth 500. The bank says it's worth 490. Now, we will immediately send that appraisal over to the seller and let them know that they're going to need to adjust the purchase price. So we can't come in at 490 at 500 because the bank is only going to lend us 490. So seller can drop the price to 490, which then everything moves right along. No issues. There's an addendum for the new purchase price. Everything else in the contract stays the same, but now you're buying it for 490. Or if the seller does push back, in the COVID market, when it was COVID, you can work things out. Jasmine always says, and it's always the case, everything in real estate is negotiable. So with that, if your buyer really, really wanted the property and the seller is giving a lot of pushback, the buyer could come out of their pocket and be like, you know what, I have $10,000 of cash. I'll go ahead and put that in. And now we're going to still close at 500,000. I don't want to get too much into different strategies and scenarios, but essentially you're letting the buyer know that those are kind of like the three main things with the appraisal. Bank orders it to make sure that the property is worth what they're about to lend you to buy it. If it's more, that's great for your buyer because they're going to walk into the home with some equity already in their pocket, but nothing changes really with the deal because it's over what you offered. If it comes in at list or at the market price of what your buyer was like 500,000 for the for the property, nothing changes. It's everybody's on the same page. Or thirdly, it comes in under, and then there's some negotiation that's going to kind of go back and forth. Everyone's going to be clear. At this point too, there's been time that's been going on. So you're probably 2.5, maybe even 3 weeks into the buying process. Does the seller, really want to, essentially they could terminate the deal. Like they're not, they need a certain amount of money, or like they're not going to lower the price, terminate the deal. And now what? Have to put it back on the market, get it relisted, shown again, take another 30 days to close. So a lot of times at this point is where you really put on your negotiating, your realtor, you kind of really jump right back in. You're in the mix to close the deal, to land the plane. All right. Very, very important for you guys you're going to land the plane. Both sides want to close. Both sides, the seller clearly wants to sell. The buyer clearly wanted to buy. We're going to make this happen. And you negotiate and you do what you need to do. This, of course, as long as it's ethical and blah, but you negotiate and you work it out. I personally had I had $1 million property that my buyer was going to buy, and the appraisal came back. It was like 80,000 under. Like the listing agent called like almost in tears, like, oh my God, like how did it appraise so low? I mean, I had nothing, but I told her, we're going to work this out. You and me, we're going to figure it out. And we closed. We figured it out. All right. So you're going to close the deal. But looking back at the, letting them know termite and survey, that's something that the inspection would have kind of already included when they had the home inspection done. We just got to make sure that the termite is part of that the lender has that. Want them to contact insurance, utility companies, getting ready to switch everything over. A lot of these things now, the lender is going to be making sure too that they're taking care of. Again, you're just like walking them and guiding them through this process. Close on the property. Take possession of your new home. Congratulations. So out of the slides, and when you print it out, this one, the previous, which is all kind of one long slide, and the previous to that, the benefits, those 11 benefits of buying a property. Guys, this is gold. Like this is so powerful information. Just read over the last two. This is the home buying process. The money, this is the money that they're going to need in order to buy a house, whether it's a $200,000 condo or a $20 million estate. These things are going to be, it's standard. This is what's going to happen. So I really, really, really advise you guys to go over this information. And again, when we're out, at a church group or a whatever event, and you just start talking real estate, like, hey, these are things like, oh yeah, well, you're gonna need an appraisal. These are some things that you want to be mindful of. I'd love to sit down with you and really get into it at a buyer consultation that we can set up at my brokerage. But your earnest money, home inspection, appraisal, these are some fees that you want to be mindful of. Now you're talking shop, you're just talking real estate, and now you sit down with them and now you get into it even more. You're the expert, right? This is probably one of the funnest and one of my favorite slides, the 10 commandments. So these are all just really good. So what you're doing here is really letting the buyer know you are not to open up any line of credit, you ain't doing nothing when we're in this buying process, especially, let me say it again, especially once we're ratified, once we're under contract, everything stops. Okay. Commandment number 1, thou shalt not change jobs. become self-employed, or quit your job. If you want to change jobs, do it after you get the keys. Now, I will say if you are in the mix of changing jobs and you're just making a lateral pivot, you were a banker at Wells Fargo and now you're a banker at Bank of America, you know, no biggie. If you're a banker at Wells Fargo and now you're going to dabble into pet grooming, not a good mix. Wait until you get the keys, then get into pet grooming. All right. Commandment number 2, thou shalt not buy a car, truck, or van, or you may be living in it. Shay has one of the best stories where you had a buyer show up to closing in his brand new Hummer, all white. I think he said he had his new sunglasses, new outfit. Shay saw him pull up and he was like, bruh, what are you doing? He was like, yeah, I just got this new car for my house. And he was like, if you don't take that car back to the dealership where you just bought it, you might be sleeping and living in the car. After you close, go buy that dream car and park it right there at your new home. Before you close, everything needs to stay the same. Thou shalt not use charge cards excessively or let your accounts fall behind. So with this one, hey, some people, if you're paying certain bills or you do certain things with your charge cards the way you normally do, that's one thing. And please steal this story. I use it all the time. There was a client that had to see Beyonce. Beyonce was in town. So them Beyonce tickets, they're not no $20 tickets. All right. So she charged Beyonce tickets. And then if you're going to go to Beyonce, you got to look good. You got to get you a new outfit. Charged her fresh outfit. And she was a week away from getting the keys to her house. And those charges on her credit blip because the underwriter, the loan company, they're scrubbing, they're looking, send me the information. Sure enough, oh, what's this charge for Beyonce? Literally, she killed the deal and she lost her house. She wasn't able to close on the property. Now, she would have used cash. Nobody been the wiser. She could have went, and seen Beyonce, what have you. So don't use charge cards excessively. Thou shalt not spend money you have set aside for closing. If you have funds set aside, it's going to have to be there. Thou shalt not omit debts or liabilities from your loan application. Thou shalt not buy furniture. And again, we got stories for days on some of these things. Thou shalt not originate any inquiries into your credit. Thou shalt not make large cash deposits without first checking with your loan officer. I had a buyer under contract, knew that they were going to close on a certain date, and he terminated his apartment. So he paid for his full month of rent at the apartment, but then he was reimbursed, and it was only he got like $100 back and deposited the $100. Sure enough, lender would call, hey, what was that $100 cash deposit come from? Now he was able to show, and he was, the lender was able to get the documentation to show this is where that cash influx came. But it was $100. You would kind of think, oh, it's $100. Let me deposit it in my account. So the other thing too is to really let your buyers know, like, look, if something comes up, even like with charge cards, or like if you have a pet, if your car breaks down, if you need to replace, you blew out 2 tires and you got to let me charge these 2 tires. As long as you let Michael Cooper, as long as you let your lender know what's going on, then he or she can kind of prepare and be ready for that underwriter to really kick back and be like, hey, this blipped on, they charged X, Y, and Z. What's this about? Oh, here's the documentation. This is why it happened. So, it's not like if anything happens and you had to charge something, you're going to lose the house or, lose the deal. but you want to fully disclose everything to your lender. He or she is your best buddy besides your realtor in this process. Thou shalt not change bank accounts, and thou shalt not co-sign a loan for anyone, right? So the 10 commandments I always like to have fun with, and kind of like lighten up, because now we went from some kind of heavy writing big checks, taking them through the whole process of the home buying process. So it's always fun to like now talk about somebody who charged Beyonce tickets and literally lost her home. I mean, wasn't funny for her, but it just shows the importance of documentation, not getting carried away. I'll also kind of reiterate here the red folder, making sure like all the documents, because it's kind of document oriented, like making sure you keep all your stuff in one spot, etc. And then closing costs, side A, side B. So side A, down payment side, FHA loan, 3.5% required from the borrower. A conventional is you're going to come, with more money, 10 to 20%. You can have gift money assistance from family. There's grant down payment assistance eligibility, ministers and clergy. Might have some discounts, benefits. Conventional loan, 5 to 20% is required from the borrower. And then side B, the borrower can receive help. Lending fees, title fees, brokerage fees, appraisal fees, funding fees, recording, tax and transfer, and all other fees. So here too is this is more of a lender kind of area too, that they're going to let that buyer know various things that they can qualify for. Everyone is unique, everyone's different. As we go through different trainings at Porterhouse, you'll hear, especially with Michael Cooper coming in for a training, things might have changed, or hey, I'm really excited about this program. So, they're going to kind of let us know two different programs that might be around now. That program may not be around again once it's, once that funding is done. Again, it just wants kind of, to really let that buyer know, talk with your lender. That's why we have a good lender that we recommend, so we can save you as much money as we possibly can. Settlement preparation. Title company will provide clear title work to the lender along with title insurance. Lender will provide you with the closing disclosure, which is the CD. You will get that 3 business days prior to closing so that you can review it. And if there's anything that needs to, be adjusted, there'll be time to do that, not at the closing table. The underwriter will provide the clear to close. That means everything is good to go. And we're setting up the day and time of the appointment to actually go in for your closing. Schedule your wire with your bank at least 24 hours in advance. Wire instructions will come to you from the title company. This is very, very key, guys, because you want that buyer to know there is fraud. There are things, I mean, look, we all know it. Like it's crazy out here in, the wild, wild west of the web. Like, I'm sure you had a spam call today. Like, so make sure that they're making sure, that they're following the instructions from the title company. Hopefully it's Velocity Title. But whoever the title company is, they're following their instructions. Once that wire is sent, you can't get it back. So you just want to kind of reiterate, there's fraud, there's scams, there's things that go out here all the time, even more so in this day and age, unfortunately. But to really make them aware, like, look, make sure you dialed in with instructions, and that you're only dealing with that title company, that person directly. It's just crazy and unfortunate how thieves and fraudulent people are. Uh, but it just is. It's the world we live in. But you looking out for their best interest is just letting them know about what's happening. And then that pretty much brings us to the close of the buyer consultation. It has been said that a good name is far more precious than jewels. So at this point of the slide too, I believe that you can actually, I mean, if you don't want to, you don't have to take Mr. and Mrs. Porter off, but you could customize it. You know, if you have your a business card pick or put your information, you can. But that basically uh, wraps up the actual slide presentation. Um, Sorry, guys. Okay. All right. Well, does anybody have any questions?
So Curtis, this was a very good in-depth kind of look at the buyers, the happy home hunting packet and the process. I appreciate that you sharing that with us and really going through it with us. So, so a question I did want to ask,
Yeah.
if there is someone who is maybe doing a buyer's consultations in the near future, if if there is an agent, and I know that we do have a few agents that are newer on with this training, it would be great for them to have the opportunity to maybe, if they're available, kind of join them to see the process, um, so that they can kind of get a feel for how it, what it looks like in
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah, it would just be a matter of, I mean, for me to actually sit in on the actual buyer consultation or do it, I want to say do it for them or do it with them. It literally would just be the actual scheduling and figuring out how that would work. Definitely be a lot easier on Zoom, but what we could also look at doing too is kind of a more in-person training on the, like, kind of what I just did, but really walking people through the buyer consultation itself. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's just a matter of, folks, hey, just reach out to me, let me know if you got a buyer, consultation possibly coming up or what have you. But I will say, if you ask me, like, like out of the blue, more than likely that ain't gonna have, just the way my life is and what I have, running around and everything. But for sure, I definitely love to be of as much service and assistance as I can. With that being said, though, you have to go through the buyer consultation. You have to, like, literally what I was actually glad I did the presentation tonight, even for myself, because I'm looking to have a consultation hopefully coming up soon. So it's just reinforcing for me, like, so, don't, um, you're not going to get it all by doing only the consultations like live. You have to, like, muscle memory. You have to just keep looking at the slides, looking at the information. And I think that's a big part of anything, is we're always nervous and uncomfortable, like when we first learned to drive, right? Everybody was, what is it, 6 and 9, or looking, and now you can drive and you're home and you don't even remember that you drove. It's the memory of, like, doing it over and over and over and over again, which is why I literally still have my porterhouse printed out copy, and I have notes in here. I just didn't go through because there's a few more things I could have gotten into. But it's just, print it out or load it up and just familiarize yourself with it, But if somebody does want me to, assist with the buyer consultation, let me know. And if I can coordinate it and it works out, absolutely.
Okay, great. And then also, so you said that, and it would be great for us to have that be a boot camp for us as well, so that we can just kind of, go through, and we're then supporting one another through that process, to help us to be more familiar with that. So I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the another thing too is like understanding, and this is all like that energy and like knowing who you're talking to, having a feel for, some people might want more detail, or I don't want to say for it to be slower, you know, and then some might be like they might have bought, two houses, three houses. They do kind of understand the process where you may not have to be as like regimented and go through the entire, but there are those, the meat and potatoes. There's like really good information in there because they could have bought their last home, before COVID, and things are different, so updating and getting them caught up to speed, even within that kind of a situation. It's letting them know that I know that they know how to buy a house, but I just want to update you and get you up to speed in the market that we're currently in right now in April of 23. I've had some guys, like I did one buyer consultation that they were younger. They didn't want all the stuff, you know what I mean? Like, but I went through it, but it's that energy you can pick up on. I'm not going to lose you. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to just talk and go through verbatim the entire process. If you kind of see that, I'm not going to lose you. So I can pick up the speed. I can slow it down. I can like hit, you want to be able to hit certain points of like, now you see, kind of eyes lighting up because you're talking money. This is where now they're really dialed in and paying attention. And that does come just with just time and experience and talking and working with just different folks, But I do so impress upon everybody to like go over the slides over and over and over again.
Right. Okay. And you can get those slides in your Brokerman library. So you can go through that
Yep.
at any time, and anytime if you're in the office, and like Curtis did, print out that home buyers packet so that you can have for yourself to begin to start and just review. That would be great. Do we have anyone else who has any other questions or comments on this evening's training?
Excellent job, Curtis.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Okay.
Yeah. I hope I wasn't too fast because I don't hear anything either. And I'm just like, okay, boom, 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 boom.
No, you did a really great job at, kind of going through the details of it. That was really great. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm going to end the recording.